True power is not seen. It is heard. It is sensed. It infiltrates. Recovered fragment. Manuscript of the initiation. No one knows the origin of the Nine. They were not born. They were extracted. From a forgotten memory. From a fracture in human consciousness. From a hole in the truth. Before them there was only silence. Then the first word was spoken, and the world split into 9 wills. Chapter 1. The Figures of the Shadow. The room was circular, carved from an unknown material, older than stone, denser than metal. There were neither doors nor windows, yet a pale light, suspended in the void, bathed the chamber in an unreal glow. All around, 9 empty thrones, sculpted directly from the ground, lay in wait. On each of them, a symbol, shifting, unstable, pulsed on the surface, as if the stone itself were breathing. It was Yael who entered first, silent, draped in a black robe whose seams vanished if one looked at them for too long. His gait was neither human nor spectral. It belonged to another rhythm, another clock than that of the visible world. His eyes, dark and deep, reflected nothing. He carried no weapon, and yet the air tensed around him, as if he had crossed the threshold of a forbidden sanctuary. He greeted no one. He had not come to be seen. Then NTHT followed, a few steps behind, harder to grasp. His silhouette seemed to shift with every blink of an eye, at times tall and upright, like an ancient judge, at times frail, like a man consumed by knowledge. He did not speak, did not look, but wherever he placed his feet, the dust would rearrange, shadows would turn, and the silence grew thicker. Those who had crossed his path said he could read the movement of air, or hear the screams within the fibers of wood. No one knew his true name. He was only designated NTHT. A mask, a code, a shifting balance. They took their place at the center, beneath the living vault of the ceiling, and all around them, the 9 thrones awakened. One by one, they revealed themselves. Obscure, first, whose throne absorbed the light. Guardian of erased truths, he never uttered a word, but his mere presence was enough to make memory falter. Then there were Whisper, whose seat barely vibrated, like a breath between 2 dreams. He taught without words, planting foreign thoughts in the minds of sleepers. Veil, the architect of the visible, shone with a deceptive glow. He drew the outlines of reality, building the world as one builds an illusion. Cycle, in his motionless loop, embodied the rituals repeated without thought, the daily gestures that conceal ancient oaths. Mirror had no face. He reflected the face of whoever looked at him, but always with one detail too many, a forgotten scar, an older eye, a smile that wasn't yours. Silence emitted nothing, yet all could hear him, monitored the void at the heart of every revelation, the space between 2 truths. Fracture, unstable, trembled constantly. He was doubt incarnate, the flaw in every structure, the question one should never ask. Union, imposing and cold, embodied absolute order. He allowed no room for variation, no chaos. His was the only throne that never moved. And finally, disruption. The accident, the glitch, the awakening. His seat flickered at times, appearing in different places, as if his presence did not obey the linear logic of the space. He was the unexpected, the one who overturned the game when the rules became too solid. But at the back of the room, in a corner where the light refused to go, rose one final seat. Taller, older, surrounded by floating veils, protected by shifting glyphs. The supreme leader did not sit upon it. He was never visible. He was not a man. He was not a god. He was a function, a core, a presence so vast it could not be contained in a single form. He never spoke directly. He spoke through the crackling of a distant fire, through the raised hand of a child, through the sudden collapse of a wall. Some disciples called him the prophet. Others said he had never been human. But all knew one thing. It was he who had validated the initiation of Yao's. It was he who had sent NTHT to balance the forces. Silence fell once more. The seats became still. The world held its breath. Chapter 2. The Contrabands. One morning in Zone 9, 9 children were found. Their faces covered with lead masks. No mouths, no eyes. Only geometric shapes. They were motionless, but on the ground around them, activation symbols were drawn. A spiral, a key, an inverted square. And at the center, carved into the stone, Yao's NTHT. That day, all clocks stopped working for 33 minutes, and 3 rivers changed direction. There they were, the contrabands, material fragments buried from the old world. Each object carried a code. Some are worn, others consumed, others watch you. A robe sewn from real burned documents. A pair of glasses that show only what has vanished. A box that contains a unique sound, heard only once by its bearer. A map where countries shift depending on your level of belief. That day, NTHT and Yao's collected 72, but over 2,000 have been recorded. The Trial of the 10th. In the deep chambers of the silent temple, a word circulates. The 10th is approaching. He is not a god, but a response, a synthesis, a foreseen anomaly. The 10th is not born, he is activated. And when the 10th and the Supreme are reunited in the Red Chamber, when the 9 major contrabands have been placed in a circle, the 9th gate will open, and then the original voice will speak again. And those who hear it will have to choose to forget or to become. You must not believe this account. It is not meant to be believed. It is meant to test you. If certain sentences feel familiar, it's because they're already in your memory. If you feel a shiver, it is not fear. It is recognition. Do not seek the truth. Learn to survive without it. Forbidden Fragment, signed Yao's NTHT. Chapter 3. The Child Without a Reflection. The rain fell like liquid needles on the black slate roof. A hill lost among the red forests, an old building had been sleeping for centuries. It had 7 windows, but only one was lit. In that room, a boy was drawing. Lisan, a child without a reflection. Lisan was 11 years old. He didn't speak much, but his eyes saw too much. The first time he drew the sigil of the 9, he didn't even know what it was. He thought it was a star with an eye at its center. As he dipped his quill into black ink, a symbol appeared on his skin, 9 dots in a circle, and in the middle, a void. He hadn't done anything. He hadn't touched anyone, but his arm was glowing softly in the shadows. He ran down the hallway, but the house was empty. Not a sound except for one strange noise, a footstep, a single footstep, heavy, steady, as if it were walking in a circle or a spiral. He followed the sound, and when he descended the stairs, he saw a man. A long coat, a leather mask, black with no visible mouth, and around him the flies dropped, stiff, dead. Was he human? A shadow? A dream? The silhouette did not speak, but in Lisan's head a cold voice echoed. "You have been seen. The gate is open." Lisan grew afraid and closed his eyes. When he opened them again, the silhouette had vanished. The first contact. That night, Lisan did not sleep. The next morning, he discovered that the objects around him had changed. The bathroom mirror no longer had a reflection, the breakfast spoon vibrated without being touched, and on the wall a sentence had appeared, written in the condensation. "Follow the sound." He did. Sounds drew him in like a magnet. Clicks, whispers in the pipes, piano notes never played. They led him to the basement door, a door he had never been allowed to open. There a key hung from the ceiling, and engraved on the key was NTHT. As he descended into the darkness, Lisan felt the space changing. The steps seemed alive. With each step, symbols appeared on the walls, images in red, then green, then blue. On the 9th step, he heard a breath, then a voice. "Do not turn your head." He did not move, but the walls began to whisper in unison. "The sun of forgetting descends. The 10th awakens. The fragment unites." At the bottom of the basement, a man was waiting for him. He wore a black hooded robe. His face was not very distinct. He removed his hood. His face was tattooed with reversed letters. It was him, the silhouette from the previous day. He spoke softly. "You weren't supposed to see me. Not yet." "Who are you?" asked Lisan. "My code name is Yaoz, the one who fell and learned to walk through the memories of others." The activation. Yaoz guided him through an underground corridor. There, a throne without a backrest, a table with 9 objects, a living book, an eye in a jar, a box that wept. He asked Lisan to choose. "Choose what calls to you. Let yourself be guided. Your heart knows the truth." The boy hesitated, then touched the box. It was made of metal, engraved with a crying siren. Instantly, the walls trembled. A red light ignited on the ceiling, and on the floor, a circle appeared around him. "It is done," said Yaoz. "You have been activated. You are a bearer, and what you carry will now begin to seek you." "What am I carrying?" asked Lisan. Yaoz paused. He sat down on the floor. He looked up. The memory of the 9. Then everything turned cold. A vibration, a pulse in the ground, a tunnel, and at the end of the tunnel, what looked like nothingness. He entered, the faceless man, the silent walker. NTHT. Yaoz rose immediately. "Brother, it's too soon." NTHT did not reply. He simply extended an object, a black sphere. Lisanne stepped closer. Inside it, he saw his own eye, but older, more hollow. Then NTHT spoke, in a deep, metallic, emotionless voice. "The 10th is born. The pact must be broken. The 9th gate opens tonight." Chapter 4. Enthronement. 2 weeks later, Lisanne was transferred to a place known simply as the University. It had no address, no teachers, only a large structure of raw concrete, lost in a misty forest, watched over by faceless statues. Yaz had warned him, "Here, you don't learn, you unlearn." There, the children never spoke of their families. They recited reprogramming phrases before every meal. "Witness I am, manufactured is the world." In one of the corridors, Lisanne saw a mural, that of a man seated, tied to a chair, with wires connected to his head and to the wall. A word in distorted letters, MK Ultra. When he asked what it meant, a girl with an empty gaze replied, "They shattered the soul to better reprogram it. We are their incomplete copies." One day, NTHT summoned Lisanne to the Hall of Shifting Archives. There, the documents reconfigured themselves. Names disappeared as soon as they were read. Then he opened an old forbidden book, bound in a type of leather peculiar enough to raise questions in the mind of anyone who might investigate its origin. Inside, an ancient map, but a strange one. Pyramids in Greenland, stone circles on the moon, cyclopean writings beneath the Pacific Ocean. NTHT showed a torn page. Before man, there were the erectors. They shaped entire cities with their hands. The pyramids are only the beginning. The real cities lie beneath our feet, inaccessible to those who believe in gravity. Lisanne frowned. Why does no one know this? After NTHT placed a hand on his shoulder. Because they were taught to laugh at what disturbs. That is the first wall of control. One night, the students were awakened by a deep vibration. All of them came out, hypnotized, into the central courtyard, where a massive antenna, over 50 meters tall, had risen from the ground. It emitted a sound that could not be heard, but Lisanne felt it in his bones. Some children cried. Others began to laugh, frenetically, without reason. Then he saw the flies, thousands of them, pouring out of a boy's mouth. Yao came running, a metal disc in his hands. "Don't look at the top! Do not look!" But Lisanne looked. And he saw an eye. Not a structure shaped like an eye. A real eye. Giant. Living. Attached to the antenna, as if it were observing something. Scanning left to right, down, and into the distance. Then it looked at the crowd, and everyone bowed. Lisanne felt a strong pressure inside his head, and then lost consciousness. Your enthronement is not complete, Lisanne. The power of the Eye of Truth is too strong. After this event, Lisanne was subjected to what they called the mental shower. A white room with a chair and a suspended needle. NTHT explained to him. They used it long ago on prisoners, then on dissidents, then on everyone. You will relive memories, but they won't be yours. Why? Asked Lisanne. Because, to enter the 9th gate, you must doubt your own birth. What he saw in that machine? He was a soldier in a war that never happened. He was an astronaut on the moon. He signed treaties with faceless figures. He placed a stone beneath a tree, inscribed with the words, "Everything you see is a test." When he emerged, he no longer had a name, only a number. 0010. Yao's, NTHT, and the Supreme Leader were waiting for him in front of an old bunker. Assured. "You are ready," said NTHT. The bunker opened. A strange heat escaped, almost alive. Inside a room, and at its center, the Ark. An arch made of black stone, sealed by a door with no lock, but around it, engraved images, a pyramid floating in the sky, an eye surrounded by 9 rays, silhouettes bound by cables to a giant screen, a man walking, his head upside down. Lisanne stepped closer, and the door spoke, not with words, but with all the memories of the world at once. "You have doubted, but you have accepted. You are ready to enter what has no name, and to discover the truth." On the other side of the eye, the door did not open. It dissolved, as if the matter which seemed solid, made of stone, had only been a lie. Behind it, there wasn't another room, but an absence of place. A corridor made of shifting symbols, fractal cuts, shadows that moved according to your thoughts. Lisanne entered. Yao's followed. NTHT remained at the threshold. "I am not allowed to see what lies beyond," he whispered. Lisanne turned to him. "Why?" "Because I have already forgotten what I saw once, and seeing it a second time would kill me." Then he vanished. In the corridor, each of Lisanne's steps triggered a vision. On the first step, he saw himself sitting in a classroom, listening to a voice that was not human. All the students wore headsets. They laughed in a loop. He understood it was an experiment. The second step, an image of Earth seen from space, but flat. No, not flat, folded. Folded in on itself like a sheet inside a box. A hologram at the center projected a clock with no hands. On the third step, a scene of war between humans and something else. A 3-meter-tall silhouette with visible bones was building an entire city with its hands. A man screamed, "They have returned!" On his fourth step, Lisanne saw towers like those seen in Dubai, but without windows, without doors. Inside, human bodies were bound to cables fed by screens. On the fifth step, a classified document appeared where one could read, "Project Monarch, Phase 4, Integration through Fashion, Image, and Consumption." His sixth step revealed creatures, dressed, stylish, almost human, but their eyes blinked in Morse code, and blinked horizontally. On the seventh step, a universe of perfect, colorful advertisements. But in the background, a silhouette was watching, a figure invisible at first glance, yet present in every ad, every music video, every magazine. Eighth step, a white room. 9 chairs, 9 screens, 9 gods. No faces. And at the center, a familiar silhouette. Yao's. But older, or younger, or perhaps never born. Ninth and final step, a mirror, but with no reflection, and inside it, a single word. Become the lie. Lisanne fell to his knees. His entire body was vibrating. He could feel the memories of other lives. He had been a soldier, an artist, a victim, a judge, a child, a monster. He screamed, "Who am I?" The answer came without a voice. A giant eye, suspended in the air, slowly opened. Inside, a disk. Inside the disk, a silhouette. And within that silhouette, himself. Then a phrase echoed in all directions. "You are not a name. You are an entry point." Then the light went out. When he opened his eyes again, Lysan was no longer in the corridor. He was on an island floating in the air. The sky was black, filled with suspended screens. On this island, a small hill, and at the top, a red temple, where a silhouette was waiting for him. Seated, motionless. Its face was made of fragments of other faces. It spoke. "Welcome. You are the witness." "Witness of what?" asked Lysan. "Of the end. Not the end of the world, but the end of what you were told the world was. And of the beginning of consciousness, and the spread of truth." It stood. "One final ritual remains." The temple opened. Inside, a white chamber, a single object, a black robe placed on a pedestal. Yao's appeared behind him. "You can't turn back anymore." "What is this robe?" "It's the uniform of the 10th. "But I'm just a boy." "Everyone who changed the world was first called a liar, then a madman, and then they built statues of them." NTHT entered without a sound. He placed a metal mask on the table. "It's yours now." Lysan looked at the robe and the mask. He took it and put it on. A current surged through his back, through his skull, through his blood. He could hear everything. The satellites, the thoughts, the forgotten transmissions. He saw the pyramids beneath the sea, the reptilian beings within political institutions, the coded messages hidden in banking transactions. And he understood. The world had never been real. Yao's and NTHT watched the child stand tall, masked, dressed in black, arms open. The silhouette bowed, and all the clocks in the world stopped. The 9 seconds. The 10th is awakened. The game begins again. The 3 Oaths. The ritual was complete. Lysan now wore the black robe, a garment that belongs neither to a time nor to a function but to an idea. Around him the faces had fallen silent. Yao gave him the sign. NTHT bowed his head. And the silhouette spoke these words. 10th, receive the 3 oaths. Silence became thicker than concrete. First oath. You will never believe what you see. Second oath. You will never reveal what you believe. Third oath. You will never fully remember what you are. Chapter 5. Revelation. It was the moment he put on the robe, that black jacket with invisible seams, its fabric so heavy it seemed woven from silence itself, that everything changed. Not suddenly, but as if every fiber of the world were subtly realigning around him. At first it was subtle, a pressure in his chest, a strange dizziness, as though his body were both too small and suddenly immense. Then before the old cracked mirror leaning against the sanctuary wall, he looked up and stopped breathing. The reflection staring back at him was not just his own. It was the one he had seen 1,000 times in his dreams, in the strange visions of the ritual, in shards of memories that did not yet belong to him. It wasn't someone else, it was him, but more him than ever before. And in a flash, as if every piece of a puzzle had flipped at once, the truth struck him, brutal, clear, undeniable. The Yaz who had guided him, that enigmatic being whose voice echoed in moments of doubt, had never been an external guide, nor a master, nor even a messenger. He was himself, a version of him from a possible future, or from a circular time where the chosen are born having already found themselves. He saw his own hands, older yet familiar, and understood that he had never truly been Leeson, or rather, that Leeson was only the necessary shell, the incomplete form, the draft. Now everything he was, everything he was meant to become had a name. He whispered it first as if to try it on, said it louder, like a truth echoing through the stone walls. I am Yaz, the 10th, the one the gods had been waiting for. Yaz felt the room bending, as if the walls now obeyed his thoughts. But what he didn't see was that far from there, someone else was watching him. In a forgotten center of the continent, hidden beneath an old Soviet art museum, a woman stared at a wall of mirrors. She wore a red dress, and her hair was golden. Her large gray-green eyes were closed, and yet she saw. Each mirror showed a fragment of Lysan, his childhood, his activation, his doubts, his fears. She whispered to a faceless man standing beside her. "He is complete." The man did not reply. "We must initiate the counter-revelation." While the 10th was adapting to his new perceptions, a subtle change began to unfold in the outside world. Screens flickered. Advertisements displayed subliminal images, a spiral, a voice, an eye. Some began writing sentences they couldn't understand. The real world begins upside down. They have been inside us from the beginning. Do not look at the sky. In a capital city, a news anchor suddenly stopped mid-broadcast, stared directly into the camera, and declared, "The gate is open." Then she collapsed. The 9 gods were no longer united. Some refused the awakening of the 10th, while others had gone silent. A secret assembly was called in the central chamber of the Temple of the Eye, at the top of the Tower of Nothingness. Yaz entered, alone. Around him, seated forms, none of them human. The voice of the 4th god, Cycle, rose. "You have broken the symmetry." Yaz remained calm. The world was already fractured. "Then it shall fall," declared the 6th, Silence. Yaz did not respond. He knew there would be no answer. Outside, the world experienced its first global distortion. It was Tuesday, September 9th at 3:09 p.m. The clocks stopped again, but this time they did not start again. Gravity ceased in certain areas. Buildings flipped upside down. Cities disappeared, then reappeared with different names. And Yaz, from the central chamber of the Temple of the Eye, raised his arms. He understood that he was no longer a boy. He had become an anomaly, acknowledged by the system. The world had not collapsed. It had simply shifted, as if reality had taken a step to the side. In some cities, people continued their day without noticing anything. But elsewhere, details began to change. Words in newspapers appeared in unknown languages. Buildings changed places. Children, barely awake, spoke coded phrases, as if dreaming them in loops, like a glitch, a bug in the matrix. if the world were trying to say something. And Yao's standing in the chamber of the Temple of the Eye felt everything, every anomaly, every shift. The 10th was in motion, and soon the world would realize it. Acknowledgement entered the circular room, his face tense beneath the mask. They're tearing themselves apart. Yao's nodded, as if he had sensed it before the words were even spoken. The factions? The third circle is accusing the disciples of the shadow of triggering the distortion. The 7th circle refuses to acknowledge your activation, and the silent circle is threatening to withdraw. Yao sighed. He made a gesture, slow, then said, "They have forgotten. They still believe the cult is an army. They fight over symbols, while the world is already rewriting itself beneath their feet." He stepped closer to the black glass canopy and whispered, "They are fighting the wrong enemy." Chapter 6. Acceptance. That night, Yaos descended alone into the catacombs, where the fragments of the first ritual were kept. There he stumbled upon the burnt manuscript, an incomplete, forbidden text sealed away since the betrayal of the 5th archivist, and inside, maps, names, and coded diagrams built around terms he knew all too well. NK Ultra, DUMS HARP, Fetal Bluebeam, Chemtrails, Operation Mockingbird. Words that the ignorant used as mockery, but Yaos knew. They were not theories, they were prototypes of global rituals, a worldwide plan to divert collective consciousness, a fog laid over the people, with one ultimate goal above all: erase the original language, the language of truth, which allows one to see the world without a filter. 3 days later, the 9 leaders of the factions gathered once again. Some came with guards, others came alone, masked. Yaos stepped onto the altar at the center. He did not shout, he spoke softly. The wind stopped, the leaves stilled. Even the antennas crackled in silence. "Some of you see me as an enemy, but I am here to remind you what you are supposed to be defending." He took out a black disk. He placed it at the center. Images burst into the air. Children strapped in front of flickering screens, planes drawing invisible patterns in the sky, schoolbooks where history changed from year to year, cities built on ritual geometries, global networks designed to divert attention at the very moment truth tries to emerge. Extended his hand. "What you're fighting is not me. You must not fight each other. It is them, those who live without seeing, those who repeat without thinking, those who laugh the moment we approach the truth." He pointed to the sky. "They've done everything they could to make truth look insane, and while you tear yourselves apart, they are coding reality." A long silence followed. Then one leader stepped forward. "We have been divided." Another followed. "Distracted, we believed each of us held the only truth." A voice from the shadows added, "But truth does not divide. It expands." Then, one by one, the 9 knelt. "Guide us, Yaos. Bring unity back to the cult. Remind us of the true enemy." The following night, Yaos wrote the Unified Doctrine, a short text of 27 lines. "The world lies. We know it. What you see is only a veil. What you believe is only a code. Between each word, listen to the void. Forgetfulness is their greatest weapon. Truth consumes the ignorant. Every number whispers a name. Every name is a prison. You are not your reflection, nor your past. Memory is a blade. Reality is a contractual fiction. History is carved from lies. The end is an inverted beginning. What you ignore is watching you. What you deny possesses you. The 9 keep watch without sleep. The key has been within you since before. The line within your in miss with rich the ground. The line dresses itself in beauty. The image enchants you to erase you. This world is a permanent ritual. Cross the screen. Look no more. Your sacrifice was your consciousness. Your freedom was an anesthesia. They laugh because they have been emptied. Doubt is the last sign of life. The 10th sees you. He is you. Declassify yourself. Declassify yourself. Declassify yourself. Distributed in secret, slipped into pockets, carved onto walls, whispered in the streets. Somewhere on an invisible island, the supreme leader smiled. Chapter 6. Propaganda. The 9 leaders had spoken. Yao's had been recognized. A new breath had spread through the temples, the bases, the dormant cells. Across the world, in silent cities, in off-grid zones, in the forgotten plains of the former USSR, messages circulated. Unity restored. Disruption guided. The 10th speaks, the 9 listen. But as the cult was gathering, the enemy was also moving. Satellites were altering their trajectories, networks were slowing down. Certain ancient libraries caught fire simultaneously. The lies became more and more insistent, and in the northern bunkers, someone was writing in reversed binary code. The cult is no longer fragmented. Infiltration phase accelerated. In the Red Room, the 9 leaders and Yaos gathered one last time before dispersion. On the table, a map, but not a geographic one, a vibrational map. Each city glowed according to its level of collective consciousness. Red zones, saturated with sleep. Gray zones, close to awakening. And a few blue points. These are the awakened, said NTHT. Scattered individuals, alone, waiting for contact. Yaos placed his hand on the center of the map. It's time to rally them. The others nodded. There was no signature, no contract, just a look and a shared slogan. Let every step be a fracture. The Great Beginning. The next day, the temples were emptied, the symbols erased, the archives relocated. The cult returned to the shadows, where it breathes best, in order to spread more easily and to propagate the cult's message. Yao's vanished from the eyes of the world, but his fragments began to appear elsewhere. A graffiti in Marseille, a book left open in Warsaw, an encrypted video projected on a wall in Seoul, and everywhere the same symbol, an I inside a 9 inside an I, a code in ZXX, like a key. The disciples were no longer trapped in underground chambers, they were in motion. Some entered institutions, others infiltrated the media, still others began training the children. Yaos, for his part, walked alone through cities, watching the people. They laughed, they stared at their phones, they repeated the slogans of the world. He stopped in front of a shop window. Inside, a screen displayed, "Truth is what you believe." He smiled and whispered, "No, truth is what you cannot believe." Then he turned and walked on. This is only the beginning of the 9 gods. From now on, the spread of the truth lies in your hands.